ウォーレン・バフェット率いるバークシャハサウェイが3年ぶりに対面でのアニュアルミーティングを開催しました。多くの人が投資の神様との異名を持つウォーレン・バフェットの話を聞きにオマハを訪れ、たくさんの人で賑わったようです。今回のアニュアルミーティングで明らかになったのは、バークシャハサウェイが1級に大きく株を買い増しているということです。今年の1月から3月の1級の間に510億ドル相当を買い、100億ドル相当を売っていますので、ネットで400億ドル、日本円にしておよそ5兆2000億円の買い越しとなっていたんです。手元の現金については、去年の12月末には1430億ドル保有していましたが、3月末には1000億ドル、日本円にしておよそ13兆円に減少しています。それでも大量のお金をまだまだ持っていることには変わりはないのですが、バークシャハサウェイがこのタイミングで株式を買い増していることは非常に興味深いですよね。バークシャハサウェイの1級の 13F ファイリングはまだ出ていないため、細かい部分は精査が必要ですが、バフェットは1級の間にアクティビジョンや HP、シェブロン、オキシデンタルペトロリアム、アップルなどを買っていることが分かりました。特にシェブロンに関しては259億ドルにまで積み増しており、かなり大きくシェアを増やしていました。シェブロンやオキシデンタルなどの石油ガスエネルギー会社をこの時期に大幅に積み増しているのは非常に興味深い動きです。アクティビジョンに関してはマイクロソフトの買収があるということで買った理由を明確にしています。HP に関しては実質債務超過に陥っている会社ですが、積極的な配当を行っていることやゼロックスから3兆円規模の買収の提案があったりと、動きが忙しい銘柄となっています。バークシャハサウェイのアニュアルミーティングは6時間以上にも及び、全てを取り上げることはできないのですが、5つのポイントに絞って取りまとめてみましたので、ぜひお楽しみください。
Inflation, I should say, swindles the bond investor too. It swindles the person who keeps their cash under their mattress. It swindles almost everybody. The problem, if you have a business that doesn't take any capital, let's just say the dollar depreciates 90% or something, so things cost 10 times as much. If it doesn't take any capital, you can charge 10 times as much, and you've kept your relative position. But most businesses take some capital. If our utility business, just say that the dollar is worth 1/10. Some years hence from now, we have to have 10 times the capital investment, basically, and we get paid a return on that. You're better off if you really could have a totally stable unit of a monetary use for the next 100 years. It would be better for business and investors in general. Inflation is the question is how much, and the question is whether you can decide that 2% and keep it. The answer is nobody knows. I mean, you do not know, and nobody knows. You can list all kinds of stuff, but nobody knows how much inflation there will be over the next 10 years or 20 years or 50 years or next month, and people talk about it all the time because you're interested in knowing the answer to your question, and they don't know the answer, but there are a lot of people that will tell you they know the answer if you pay them enough. But the answer is they don't know, and we don't know either. The best protection against inflation, though, still is your own personal earning power. If you play the violin very well, you will do reasonably well during inflation. We have never made, Charlie and I don't think, in all the time we've worked together, and I don't think we've ever made a decision we should buy or sell based on what the market is going to do.
No.
Or for that matter, on what the economy is going to do. We don't know. We were optimistic in 2008 when everybody was down on stocks and all that sort of thing. We spent a big percentage of our net worth at a very dumb time. We spent about $15 or $16 billion, which was a lot bigger to us then than it is now. Wrigley and Goldman Sachs and General, at a terrible time, as it turned out. I mean, I didn't know whether it was going to be a good time or a bad time, but it was a really dumb time. I totally missed that opportunity. I totally missed, in March of 2020. We have not been good at timing. We've been reasonably good at figuring out when we were getting enough for our money. Well, we always hoped it would go down for a while so we could buy more, and we hoped even after we were done buying and ran out of money that if it was cheap, the company would keep buying, and in effect taking our interest up. I mean, that's stuff you could learn it in fourth grade, but it's not what's taught in school. Well, actually, give us all the credit. I mean, go out and tell everybody how smart we are, but we aren't. We haven't ever timed anything. We've never figured out insights into the economy.
The government of China has worried the investors from the United States who invest in China more in recent months and years than he did in earlier periods. So there's been some tension, and it's affected the prices of some of the Chinese stocks, particularly internet stocks. Just in the last day or two, the Chinese leader has sort of reversed course on that. Said he went too far and he's going to pull way back and so on and so on. So we're having some hopeful signs. But yes, there are more difficulties of dealing with the regime in China than there are in the United States. And it's different. It's a long way away, and they've got their own culture and their own loyalties and so on and so on. The reason that I invested in China is I could get so much better companies at so much lower prices, and I was willing to take a little political risk to get into the better companies at the lower prices. Other people might reach the opposite conclusion, and everybody is more worried about China now than they were 2 or 3 years ago. So that's just the way it is.
There's all kinds of people watching this that are long Bitcoin, and there's nobody that's short, and nobody wants their windpipe stepped on. I don't blame them. I don't like people who step on my windpipe. But I would say this: if the people in this room owned all of the farmland in the United States, and you offered me a 1% interest in it, and you said for a 1% interest in all the farmland in the United States, it's this bargain price, $25 billion. I'll write you a check this afternoon, $25 billion. Now I own 1% of the farmland. If you tell me you own 1% of the apartment houses in the United States, and you offer me a 1% interest, so I'll have a 1% interest in all the apartment houses in the country, and you want whatever it may be, another $25 billion or something, I'll write you a check. It's very simple. Now, if you told me you owned all of the Bitcoin in the world, and you offered it to me for $25, I wouldn't take it, because what would I do with it? I have to sell it back to you one way or another. I mean, maybe I have the same people, but it isn't going to do anything. The apartments are going to produce rental, and the farms are going to produce food. And if I've got all the Bitcoin, I'm back where whatever his name was, who may or may not have existed, was 15 years ago. If I've got it all, he could create a mystery about it. But everybody knows what I'm like. I mean, so if I'm trying to get rid of it, people will say, well, why should I buy some Bitcoin from you? I mean, why don't you call it Buffett coin? Make your own or something. What? Do something. But I'm not going to give you anything for it. That explains the difference between productive assets and something that depends on the next guy paying you more than the last guy got. Now, if you look at it, a lot of commissions have been paid, and there's all kinds of frictional costs that are very real that somebody has paid to a bunch of people who facilitate this game. But whatever one group of the public has taken out, or one group of owners, has come in from other people. Other people have entered the room and they move money around, but there's no more money in the room. It just changed hands with a lot of maybe fraud and costs involved, and a whole bunch of things. You lose, you forget the numbers or forget the equation. You can do that with a lot of things. It's been done throughout history. Certain things have value that don't produce something tangible. You can say a great painting probably will have some value 500 years from now. May not, but the odds are pretty good that if it was a big enough name, basically assets to have value, they have to deliver something to somebody, and we can come up with all kinds of things. We can put up Berkshire coins, or we can put up Berkshire money or anything like that. But we get in trouble, I guess, if we call it money. But this is money, and anybody that thinks the United States is going to change to where they let Berkshire money replace theirs, is out of their mind. I mean, whether it goes up or down in the next year or 5 years, 10 years, I don't know. But the one thing I'm pretty sure of is that it doesn't multiply, it doesn't produce anything. It's got a magic to it, and people have attached magics to lots of things.
In my life, I try and avoid things that are stupid and evil and make me look bad in comparison with somebody else. Bitcoin does all three. And in the first place, it's stupid because it's very likely to go to zero. The second place is evil because it undermines the Federal Reserve System and the national currency system, which we desperately need to maintain its integrity and government control and so on. And third, it makes us look foolish compared to the communist leader in China. He was smart enough to ban Bitcoin in China. With all of our presumed advantages of civilization, we are a lot dumber than the communist leader in China.
Yeah, and when 25% of the people of the country get mad because we've said what we've said today, just remember Charlie spoke last. It was the most... People have more money than they've had before. They like to buy. And there's certain things they can't buy. It's like during World War II, you got a lot of money created, and people couldn't buy cars, and they couldn't buy refrigerators, and they couldn't even buy as much sugar or coffee or things as they wanted. They had little stamps and gasoline and all kinds of things. Well, eventually, if you get a lot of money in people's hands and you don't have very many goods, prices go up. Now, you can do all kinds of things, talk it down, and of course, inflation is never the same. Nothing in economics is the same the second time after it happens than the first, because the first affects people's attitudes, and the second, their attitudes always influence the activity itself. I mean, it is an interesting phenomenon. People write a textbook, and they write it based on the last experience, and people read the textbook so they behave differently next time, and they wonder why they're getting a different result than they got the time before. So the government has set out lots of money to people. At some point, the money can't be worth as much as it was when there was less money out. The Federal Reserve every Thursday puts out a balance sheet. The Federal Reserve and Treasury, they're complicated institutions, but they do put out this kind of consolidated statement of all the various Federal Reserve banks, all these things that have entered into legislation over the years, but there's a balance sheet. The Federal Reserve issues those notes I talked about a while back. There's the current one, and they print these pieces of paper. Well, the interesting thing is, people said cash is dead and all that sort of thing, cashless society. Well, there were 800 billion, go back 10 or 15 years, but there was about 800 billion of currency in circulation. And if you look at last Thursday's report, you'll see there's something like now $2.2 trillion of currency in circulation, 2.2 trillion. Strange period where we had lots of money sent out to people, one way or another we're getting it, that they didn't find as many things to buy as before, and we had supply chain disruption. They have all these things happen. But the end of it is they go out to the Nebraska Furniture Mart and they just start buying things. And they do it with our other companies, and they do it in very peculiar ways. We are seeing an unleashing of the fact that we've just mailed a lot of money to people. one way or another. It's very indirect. It all gets complicated when we talk about a big system, but this is what's happened. I will guarantee you that if we mail out $1 million to every household in the United States tonight, there's a million things that happen in economics. But the answer is we've had a lot of inflation, and it was almost impossible not to have if you're going to mail out the kind of money we've mailed out. And it's probably a good thing we did it. In fact, I think if they hadn't done it, your lives would be a lot worse, a whole lot worse now. And that was an important decision. That's why you've had inflation, and heaven knows, I mean, it could end. You can throw the country into recession. You can do all kinds of things. The country's going to have recessions, incidentally, and it's going to have depressions periodically. And things will happen differently.